friends. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and welcome to another episode of Women of Her Story, a podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making their mark on our society. Sitting with me today is Mutter Sanderson III. How much coffee have you had today, Mutter?
Oh, wow. Just a few, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cups, but, who's counting? Because I've had a great week. I'm super excited. Do you like that one?
Your mutter, not stutter.
Yeah, well, no, the coffee. I have so much energy, I'm just firing off. Like, I can't even. But
we did have a lot of coffee today.
We have
It's
a lot
been
of
a great
coffee.
week.
We've been keeping up with how everyone's been doing, and so, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I also had 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee today.
See, who's counting? Not me.
Our Her Story lesson today is about the first female principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, Wilma Mankiller. My writing and research cannot do her story justice, so I just want to tell everyone to go get her autobiography, Mankiller, A Chief and Her People, as soon as you finish listening to this episode. And I would also like to say that I will be using the verbiage from the book and various sources that I used, as I wasn't sure what the proper terms for she and her people would be, so I went off of what she referenced herself and her tribe's people as.
Okay.
Yeah?
Appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Well, let's get going.
Please.
I'm going to start you guys with a quote from her. She says, "No individual's life stands apart and alone from the rest. My own story has meaning only as long as it is part of the overall story of my people. For above all else, I am a Cherokee woman." So that's where we're going to start today.
Ooh, I like that.
Chomping at the bit to see... Oh, no. Wilma's ancestors were some that can be traced back far before the settlers arrived, chomping at the bit to seize the land that the Cherokee Nation had as their own. A major issue in dealings with the land between the indigenous people and the settlers laid in the differing ideals they had regarding the land. I cannot speak to what other tribes believe, but in my research I found that the Cherokee Nation did not believe in owning land. They believe that they exist in nature and occupy the land, that it is not to be owned. The European settlers, as we know, didn't exactly feel the same way. One of her ancestors, Lucy Matoy, had immigrated west voluntarily around 1817 to what would be known as the Cherokee Nation West, about 20 years before the forced removal by the federal government in what we know as the Trail of Tears. All of her ancestors, aside from Matoy, were forced to endure the Trail of Tears. Their family name, Mankiller, in English translation, is a powerful name and a traditional Cherokee military rank. In 1907, Indian Territory, aka Cherokee Nation West, was no longer when Oklahoma became a state. It was divided up and given to individual landowners and families. And then, with the cooperation of the Oklahoma judicial system, the land that had been allotted to Cherokee families was being stolen again. Greedy people and or corporations were being appointed guardians of Cherokee children, and then they would take control of their individually allotted Cherokee land. Yeah, this was all occurring when oil was initially discovered in Oklahoma.
Yeah, the concept of manifest destiny and moving and westward expansion really, hurt the natives the most. They were losing everything.
Literally.
Manifest destiny only helped people who thought they didn't have, who wanted more than what they had. You know what I mean? They wanted other people's things.
Who saw it as, oh, look at all this opportunity, and these people who are existing here aren't even using it the way they could be.
Yeah. They only had a small version of the map of the map of the continental U.S. that we know today, and it was only of what they were aware of and how in relation to their expeditions. But there were people living out there.
Yeah.
Like, westward expansion only makes sense if there's no one there and there's, like, not land
Or
being
if you're,
inhabited.
yeah,
Otherwise,
or
just
if you're doing it like
taking
in a way
people's
that,
land.
yeah, you're just literally stealing,
Yeah.
and you think that just because your level of civilization trumps theirs, so
Yeah.
you have the right because your weapons are bigger and better, quote unquote better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Native people were not considered citizens of the United States until 1924, the year that Congress passed the Indian Citizenship Act. Now, this act gave them voting rights and citizenship if they were born within the territorial limits of the United States. However, they were not under the protection of the Bill of Rights at this time. So they were like, listen, you can vote, but also, like, you're not protected in any way, shape, or form. And this is despite the fact that large amounts of Native people had volunteered to go to battle in the Great War, and her grandfather included. So that's
the thanks they get. Awful. Awful.
Yeah. Her father and his sister were forced to attend the Sequoia Training School that is maintained to this day by the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
What's that?
Well, it's now one of only 5 Native American educational facilities in Oklahoma. But at the time that her father and his sister attended, it was a school dedicated to orphans, even if you weren't actually, you'll see. So the BIA, or the Bureau of Indian Affairs, would go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles around and bring back Native children, trying to get the children away from their families, tribes, language, and heritage. The mission was to isolate the children, to erase their culture, to solve the Indian problem.
I can't, honestly, this just seems so familiar, and it's on the tip of my tongue, and I just don't know. But it's not like history repeats itself. Yeah, keep going.
At the Sequoia School, William's father and aunt were not allowed to speak their native language, and when they arrived, they didn't speak English. They were whipped until they got it right. They wanted to make the little Indians into ladies and gentlemen. Short hair, no visits from friends or family, to civilize the children. Killing the Indian to save the man.
That's just gross.
Isn't that disgusting? These
That's
are literal
inhumane.
quotes from, like, the actual doctrine, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's just absolutely gross.
Horrific. Mental, sexual, and other physical abuses were widespread in these institutions. An investigation as recent as 1980 shows that this abuse is still happening around North America. Many students, her father included, reportedly have mixed feelings about the Sequoia School, though. They usually spent a decade at these schools. They became a home, they tended to the gardens, they kept the ground, but they were separated from their culture. They were being trained to fit in better with white society. Wilma Mankiller was born on November 18th, 1945, to parents Charlie Mankiller, a full Cherokee man, and Irene Sitten, her Dutch-Irish mother, who, Wilma says, so fully immersed herself into the Cherokee Nation that she sometimes forgot she was white.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Unlike most people outside of the Cherokee Nation, she didn't even bat an eye at the last name Mankiller. For her, it wasn't anything to be concerned about. She had, after all, grown up in Oklahoma, and she and Charlie would run into each other all around town. Wilma was the 6th of 11 children. At age 11, she and her family moved from the rural, that is still a hard word for me, ancestral home in Oklahoma to the Bay Area of California with her family.
Interesting.
Yeah. Charlie wanted to try California, new opportunities, and the like. Irene reluctantly agreed, and off they went. No surprise that Wilma was not ready to leave the only place she had ever known. The culture shock from the move was real. In Oklahoma, on ancestral land, the family of 13 was poor, but in California, they were destitute. In 1963, Wilma married for the first time and had 2 daughters. The marriage was a difficult one. It was the move to California that thrust her into social activism, though, so some good came of it. In 1969, a group of Native American students got control of the abandoned Alcatraz prison because they wanted the land to be returned to the Indian people. The occupation lasted for 19 months. She would bring goods and visit the island when the opportunities arose. I didn't know that this happened.
I was gonna say, I figured you would have said something about that.
I had no idea that this.
That's so interesting. I know. I'm trying to imagine. So, like, they said there was like rough waters between like the island.
They probably boated out there.
I'm just trying to imagine like her with like pastries,
Oh.
or like like food. Like, I'm here to support the
I
cause.
wonder if there was like
and then,
a ferry of sorts.
like a regular
that was
like a Staten
part of
Island ferry for Alcatraz.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. She says that when Alcatraz occurred, I became aware of what needed to be done to let the rest of the world know that Indians had rights too. Wilma wanted to get involved in the issues surrounding the Native community, and her husband wanted her to stay a housewife. So they divorced in 1977, and she took her daughter and moved back to Oklahoma to the Cherokee Reservation.
Good.
It looked like life was finally making sense for Wilma. But a freak accident shook her to the core.
Oh, no.
She was driving one night when a car from an oncoming lane swerved in front of her to pass a car in their lane, striking her head on.
Oh.
Her best friend was driving the oncoming car, and they died from the accident.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Wilma was seriously injured and spent almost a year in recovery.
Oh my goodness.
I know. At times, she says she also spent reflecting on her priorities and her life.
Oh, moving back and then getting in the accident?
Can you imagine?
That's such a
I
series of
literally
unfortunate
have
events.
chills. I can't imagine and it was just a
timing is just
completely freak
unfortunate.
accident. Like, someone was just trying to pass and didn't see her, and there's, I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
She decided to embrace the Cherokee vision, being of good mind, thinking positively about what happens in your life, taking what comes your way, and doing your best to serve others. It's a good thing, too, because she would need this mindset for the next roadblock that came her way. Pretty fresh out of recovery, she was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, a chronic muscular disease that required surgery. This disease makes it difficult to speak, hold a pencil, even brush your hair. She says, I thought a lot about what I wanted to do with my life during that time. The reality of how precious life is enabled me to begin projects I couldn't have otherwise tackled.
I'm going to try to complain a little less in my life about stuff that I have to do, because I feel bad.
I know. Listen, researching this, that's why I'm saying I can't even do her story justice, because there's more in all of this that I was just like, I can't even, wow, just insane. Wilma had found a new sense of purpose and found the perfect project in Bell, Oklahoma. In the early 1980s, Wilma served as the director of the Cherokee Nation Community Development Department. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
And Bell, Oklahoma was a small village on the Cherokee Reservation where most of the residents were poor and only spoke Cherokee. The residents largely lived in unsafe, rundown housing without running water. Using grants she obtained and some federal money, Wilma organized a community self-help project where volunteers from Bell constructed an 18-mile-long water system and repaired the dangerous housing situations.
A great community.
I know. Also, incredible. And the feature film, released in 2013, called The Cherokee Word for Water, covers this project. It's really interesting. In 1983, Wilma became the deputy principal chief of the Cherokee Nation.
Okay.
In this capacity, she gained a reputation as an effective leader in the community. The principal chief resigned in 1985, and the law stated that the deputy was the next in line in this circumstance. Wilma became the first principal chief of the modern Cherokee Nation.
Wow. After all of the hardships she faced, that's the least. That's the least life could, give her
Yeah.
is this.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this bone.
Like, clearly she's dedicated her life now to this, and it's like, oh,
Good
finally.
things have to happen to good people
Yeah.
eventually.
If-
That's
oh,
just how, or else
it has
karma
to. Yeah.
and the world just
Yeah.
didn't work the way that it does.
The Cherokee Nation is the second largest tribe in the United States after the Navajo. The worldwide population of the Cherokee Nation amounts to over 140,000. It has an annual budget of $75 million, and it has over 1,200 employees on their reservation across 7,000 miles. This means that being the principal chief's responsibility equate to that of a head of state and a CEO of a major corporation. 2 years later, in 1987, Wilma ran for election as principal chief against prejudice. She had decided that she wanted to be elected.
Yeah,
instead of
take things up a notch and bring that change herself.
Her car was vandalized, tires slashed, she received death threats, and more. She relied on her knowledge of the Cherokee and Indian culture for her confidence in the ability of women to lead the tribe. In traditional Cherokee culture, women played a vital role in the social and political life of the tribe, and women's councils were common. One particular Cherokee tradition involved I'm so sorry, I'm going to say this totally wrong, the Jigawa, I'm pretty sure. Literally translated to war women. The Jigawa were very important women in the tribe. They had a voice and a vote in the general council and headed the women's council. It was believed that the Great Spirit spoke through them, and because of this, they were responsible for prisoners and would decide their fate. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. One notable one was Nancy Ward. These are all very rough English translations of their Cherokee names. And I'm just going to go with the English translation because I don't want to butcher any more than I have to. She was born in Chota and was the daughter of a Cherokee woman, Tame Doe of the Wolf Clan. Just awesome. In 1755, she fought along the Muskogee Creeks. Her first husband, King Fisher, was killed, and at just 18 years old, she led the tribe through a victorious battle. Here comes something a little bit crazy. There is something known as the Seneca myth in association with two of these women. And I'm gonna read the whole myth. Among the Cherokee, there were two women who were looked up as the head women of the tribe. Each woman had 2 snakes tattooed on her lips. The upper jaws of the snakes were on the woman's upper lips and opposite each other, the lower jaws on the lower lip in the same way. When the woman opened her mouth, the snakes seemed to open theirs.
Sorry, that imagery was wild.
It's crazy. The women said, quote, "This is the way to torment him." This is so brutal. Okay. "This is the way to torment him. Tie him near a fire and then burn the soles of his feet till they are blistered. Then let the water out of the blisters. Put kernels of corn inside the skin and chase him with clubs till he dies." It's a myth. It didn't actually happen, but it made me think about the fact that I always have blisters.
Yeah.
And I literally...
That imagery was
But that's the thing is they have
personal.
But these women are head of tribe. They've been entrusted to decide the fate of prisoners. It's very interesting. Women are brutal. I don't know why people think we are these soft little flowers.
Definitely misappropriated. Like to think that it's
that.
like soft flowers. Like I don't know why that ever became a stereotype that men decided to like place onto women.
I don't think I've ever met a woman, no matter how sweet they are, that could not totally obliterate you if she felt.
She's looking at me when she says that. She's not talking in general. She looked dead in my eyes and told me that. Just kidding.
Are you?
Yes.
The Cherokees believe in a well-ordered, delicate balance between men and women. In her autobiography, used that the Europeans disrupted that balance with their power constructs in their society. Kind of like what I was just saying. She says that her election as the first female chief was a small step to restoring the proper balance between sexes in the Cherokee Nation. As chief, her key focuses were education, job training, and healthcare for her people. She revolutionized the largest Indian-run healthcare system in the country, doubled the annual tribe revenue, and tripled tribal enrollment. Amazing.
I love that outreach. I love that she was able to inspire that.
That's of that.
That's what they needed. Absolutely, for that many people to get involved. That's not a fluke. That just doesn't happen overnight. There's clearly like a sudden change in attitude.
Proud. Yes, being
absolutely
proud to say I am,
and happy that they can have someone to speak up for them. Like, why wouldn't you, support them and do what you could? Yeah.
She also made sure that women were back to being part of the councils.
Okay. There we go.
She's a open the
Boss
door,
lady.
come on in.
Yeah. Hashtag the door's open.
In 1986, she married Charlie Soap, a full-blooded Cherokee.
Mr. Soap.
Mr. Soap.
Mr. Soap here.
The two had met initially during the Bell Waterline project, working closely together. When he lists his personal heroes, Wilma is at the top of his list, and he is at the top of hers. She says, "He is the most secure man I have ever met. He is not threatened by strong women. He is supportive of women, of women's causes, and of me and my work."
He is a clean man.
Mr. Soap is
he's a sudsy man, one might say. But that is great, though, yes. Hashtag he for she also.
Yeah. In 1990, she needed a kidney transplant, and her oldest brother, Don, agreed to donate one of his. Less than a year later, she ran for re-election as principal chief and won in a landslide with 83% majority.
Oh, man. Slap the other opponent in the face. Goodness. Yeah, she did the slapping motion because she liked it. Because that's what happened.
83%.
83% says, "I rocked you in the face."
Now, unfortunately, due to health problems, she didn't run again in 1995.
Oh.
Yeah, she suffered from breast cancer, lymphoma, various operations, you name it. These ailments clearly didn't affect her ability to be an effective leader in any way, though. Former President Bill Clinton awarded her the Medal of Freedom in 1998.
Wow.
I know. I love that. I love that. Yes. Wilma Mankiller died from pancreatic cancer on April 6th, 2010.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's not even one of the ailments
I listed. I know. Yeah, right, exactly. She said all those things that she was dealing with, didn't even die from it. It was another thing.
It was a totally different thing.
Yeah, she beat everything up.
As I mentioned before, and I've referenced it a few times, her autobiography, Mankiller, A Chief and Her People, was a primary source for this episode. Each chapter starts with a Cherokee myth, legend, or tradition that illustrates a core aspect in the Cherokee culture for the chapter you're about to get into. It's so cool. She was awarded honorary degrees from Dartmouth College, Yale University, Smith College, University of Oklahoma, Tulsa University, and Rhode Island College. She was also awarded the Chubb Fellowship at Yale, International Women of Distinction Award, Delta Kappa, National Racial Justice Award, Elizabeth Blackwell Award, and the Dorothy Height Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah.
That's impressive. Someone should do a podcast episode about her.
Here's the thing that's so interesting to me about her. That's just the fact alone that, like, opening up in her book is her saying, my life means nothing if you don't look further back and talk about all these other people and where I fit into this world. And that's someone who has all of these accolades. She has a Medal of Freedom.
That's a tale of perseverance.
And that's someone she's
remarkable life.
Yeah,
door
incredible.
Opener. Yeah, glass breaker.
And here's what she said. And I'm going to leave you guys with this quote, as I like to do. She says, "I hope that when I leave, it will be just said, I did what I could."
That's
crazy.
So good.
Because, I'm getting all emotional about it.
Like,
because she's like, I did what I could. Girl, you didn't have to do anything because literally
you didn't owe the world anything. Also, the world owed you everything.
Also because literally anybody else, I can't imagine anyone else being like, oh, I hope they just know that I did what I could. It's like, you had like 17,000 different cancers and also like, oh my God, your life.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, but also, you know, I've done what I did what I could. And I'm just like, you did more than anybody does.
You did more than someone who didn't have like a community being like persecuted against.
Yeah, and then also even within that community
against,
was also getting death threats from people.
Yeah, like you did more than most people, men or women.
Oh my gosh.
Like in their own community to help further it. You know, yeah. And I feel like.
Yeah.
If you're part of like a marginalized group like that, and you basically overcome your obstacles and then some to help like make sure that those obstacles are lesser for people.
Yes.
You are more of you are like the standard for what like a human being should be. And there are people who have more opportunities who do less, and those are the bottom of the barrel.
That's like, but that ends up being the status quo, which is kind of crazy. People, it's very strange.
Who have the privilege and the opportunity, who do less than those of marginalized groups. Yep.
Yeah, this was a really, really interesting woman to research, and it inspired me to want the rest of the month to be episodes about Indigenous women, Native American women. It depends on, all my research has had different verbiage, so I'm trying, but that's what our rest of November is gonna be, are these just a few of these amazing women that are just doing so much for not just their community but for women, for everyone. So
I'm excited because my New York City public education system only taught me about Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark,
and pretend Pocahontas that like wasn't actually.
Pocahontas and the Iroquois.
We spent
like
too much time learning about Croatoa.
We didn't even get that far. No.
We just learned. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So it's been a really interesting thing, and again, everybody go get that autobiography because it will open so much to you.
Supply yourself to supply your wealth. You know, educate yourself. No, I heard that from somewhere.
That's fine.
But yeah, it was a great rap song.
Well, thank you, Historians, for tuning in again. Subscribe, rate, review, tell all your relatives, but like from 6 feet away, in gatherings of no more than 10.
Yeah.
And come back this Friday for an interview with the CEO of Investiva, Kiana Daniel. In this interview, she talks about how she got into investing, her appearances on Fox Business, and more, why she's passionate about the Investiva movement, and so much more. Follow us on the social media. Twitter at
The Her Story Pod,
Instagram
Women of Her Story Podcast,
and visit our website at
ofherstory.com.
Until this Friday, be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.
Wear a mask. We did it. Bye.
Bye.